Accra wakes with a hiss of oil and a chorus of bargaining. Afia threads through Makola Market with a basket on her hip, the bright wax prints of her skirt fluttering like flags. Her mother has already laid out bowls of groundnuts and jars of Cheeto. Her auntie cleaves through smoked fish with a cutlass that glints in the slanting light. Afia breathes the cinnamon smoke of Kelaweel, the brine of Tide carried from Jamestown, the green sweetness of plantain skins. She loves these smells like family names. She first notices him by the way he listens. While others shout their prices, he leans close to an old customer, head tipped, shoulders relaxed. The stall is neat, tomatoes stacked like rubies, contamire leaves fanned out, garden eggs in baskets plated by a careful hand. His grandmother, straight-backed, eyes bright with that stubborn market spark, sits on a stool counting change into a handkerchief. "Kwesi," she says, "no bend the tomatoes too much." He smiles and moves gently as if the fruit could bruise simply from a careless thought. Afia pretends she needs tomatoes and cues though she does not. Up close she sees the faint scar that cuts across his eyebrow, the way his forearms are dusted with earth, the sort of dirt that means honest work. "How much for one bowl?" she asks though the sign says clearly. "For you," he replies, "I can add small blessing," and the smile is soft enough to loosen the knot in her chest. She laughs before she can help it. Behind the laugh, something knocks, a door opening somewhere inside her. The market is a river and the morning is its flooding. Trotiaro horns howl. A Kent seller calls, "Sister, try my new pattern." Drummers practice at the corner, warming their palms. Afia's mother sends her to fetch change. Afia returns with coins and new excuses to pass the vegetable stall. Each time she steals a glance. Each time Kwesi glances too. It is a dance that requires no drum, only the hush between heartbeats and the volatile geometry of eye contact. A gust lifts the awning and blinds her with sun. She squints, steps wrong, and the basket tilts. Tomatoes roll like marbles. "Oh," she gasps mortified. Hands, his, catch the escaping fruit. 1, 2, 3. He kneels with her in the red dust, their heads nearly touching as they reach for the last runaway that wobbles by his grandmother's sandal. When their fingers brush, something electric skitters from skin to skin, quick and undeniable. He draws a sharp breath as if surprised by a salt wave. "I'm Afia," she says a little too quickly. "I know," his grandmother says dryly, counting coins, not looking up. "Trader Abina's daughter. Your mother fights over change like a soldier." Afia laughs again, cheeks warming. "I am Kwesi," he says, wiping dust from his palms. "Mame Esi's grandson. Sometimes her legs pain her, so I lift the heaviest crates. That is my degree." He shrugs, playful, but the pride is real. Afia tastes the name in her mouth. Kwesi. Fits like a melody. By noon the heat becomes a law. Afia fans herself with a cut carton while her mother haggles with a stubborn man about the price of smoked salmon. Across the aisle, Kwesi's stall hums. A little boy begs for a bruised plantain. Kwesi winks and slips him two. Afia watches him give more than he must. There is a gentleness in him the market has not beaten out. It makes something in her ache with recognition, as if she has been waiting for a proof of goodness, and here it is, wearing a faded Black Stars jersey. When the first clouds gather, Mame Esi calls for a pause and selling to pour libation. She whispers prayers to ancestors who knew this market when it was young and raw with possibility. Afia closes her eyes, not because she believes in exactly the same way, but because the reverence hushes her. The hush has a center, and that center, she realizes with a nervous start, is the space where Kwesi stands. Rain arrives hard, drumming the tin roofs, turning alleys to rushing seams of silver. Afia and Kwesi both lunge to save their goods, grabbing tarpaulins and clipping them with clothes pegs that never quite hold. In the shared frenzy, they end up under the same sagging sheet, shoulders pressed, their laughter loud against the rain. "We are inside one tent now," he says, voice intimate as a secret. She nods, breathless, a drop of rain sliding from her jaw to his knuckle where it rests on the crate. For a long blink, the market vanishes. There is only rinse and thunder, their joined hands steadying a world that wants to tilt. Afia studies the raindrop tremoring on his skin and thinks of all the small balances that make a life. A price agreed upon, a word kept, a gaze returned. When the storm thins to a whisper, they are still standing too close. Neither of them steps back. "Madowa," he says softly, then laughs at his own boldness. "Forgive me. I like the way you laugh." Afia feels the laugh return, softer now, threaded with something new. "Then make me laugh again tomorrow," she says, surprising herself with courage she didn't know she had. He bows a little as if she is a customer to be pleased. The rain slips away. The market breathes, shakes itself dry. Somewhere a radio cracks into high life. Afia returns to her stall with a secret tucked under her tongue. It tastes like green mango and rain. By the second morning, even the hawks that circle Makola seem to know something has changed. Afia wakes before the roosters, plaits her hair in the mirror with a care that borders on ceremony, and chooses a scarf the color of hibiscus. Her mother notices. "Who are you dressing for?" she asks, not unkind. "For the day," Afia replies. It is true, this day deserves beauty. But when she ties the knot, her hands imagine another pair tightening it, thumbs pressing lightly against her nape. Kwesi is already at the stall arranging okra in green constellations when she arrives. "You came," he says as if there was a contract signed in the rain. "I told you to make me laugh," she replies. "Have you prepared your price list?" He points to a chalkboard. "Plantain, smiles per bunch. Tomatoes, 2 jokes for 1 bowl. Garden eggs, 1 proverb free." She laughs despite herself, the sound unexpectedly private in the public chaos. Mamiasai shakes her head, but her mouth tilts upward. They begin to talk in the pauses between sales. His father was a fisherman who did not return from a storm. His mother sells kenki and atabraka. He dropped out of Polytechnic when the fees refused to bend. "I will go back," he says, not as a plea but as a plan. Afia tells him about the accounts she keeps in neat notebooks, about her dream to open a small store where the floors shine and the customers find what they need without shouting. "But not like those foreign shops that swallow markets," she adds, unaware she has invited a foreshadow into the conversation. Afia's mother sends her to buy smoked mackerel on credit. Afia returns carrying more than fish. She carries a nervous brightness that her mother eyes with suspicion. "That boy," her mother says later, when the sun has bled down to a honey scrape across the roofs. "He is older." Afia shrugs. "He is kind." Kindness feels like a more important count than age. Kindness does not boil yam, her mother warns, but her gaze softens. She remembers, perhaps, her own young hunger. They share food for the first time that afternoon. Afia brings wache wrapped tight in leaves, the rice dyed burgundy with sorghum, the stew pepper beautiful. Kwesi brings oranges peeled like spirals, releasing fragrance that makes the mouth water before the tongue catches up. They sit on overturned crates, knees grazing. The taste of Shido heat mingles with the cool citrus, and Afia thinks, absurdly, that love must be this, 2 flavors that don't compete but somehow illuminate each other. The market tests them with its small cruelties. A customer accuses Afia of shortchanging her. Afia counts calmly, voice steady even as humiliation burns her ears. Kwesi steps forward, offers to make up the difference himself. "No," Afia says, her pride a living thing. He meets her gaze and retreats, the refusal not a wall but a signal. "Trust me to fight my own fight." Later, when the accuser slinks away embarrassed, he does not say, "I told you so." He simply pours water over Afia's hands to wash off the dust of the quarrel. Near evening, a musician passes through with a battered guitar, strumming highlife that turns the alley into a dance floor. Children spin. An elderly man shuffles with sinuous grace. Afia and Kwesi sway, their shoulders almost touching, their laughter threaded into the music's old sweetness. "If we were not in the market, I would ask you to dance properly," Kwesi murmurs. "Who said the market is not proper?" Afia counters, stepping a little closer. The nearness is a decision. Feels like stepping into sunlight. When they part, the world has tilted by a degree only they can measure. Afia walks home past women pounding fufu in rhythm, past a neighbor's radio preaching, past boys flying paper kites in the last light. She is full of a quiet agitation that keeps her awake. In the dark, she drafts a future in her head, one where she adds a stall, paints a sign, finds a way to mix order with this cherished chaos. She does not name the future's companion, but his outline moves when she moves. At his home, Kwesi washes his hands slowly, mindful as if the day is still on his skin and he doesn't want to rinse it off. "You are smiling like a thief who was not caught," his mother observes, setting a bowl of light soup on the table. He grins. "Ma, sometimes the world gives small gifts." She eyes him with the particular penetration of mothers who have survived the sea. "Small gifts can grow teeth. Be careful how you feed them." He nods, but his caution is a paper boat in a rainstorm of feeling. Before sleep, he writes a list in a notebook. Susu contributions to increase, cart repairs, fertilizer source to bargain for. Then at the bottom he writes, "Learn one Chui poem." He tears the page out, embarrassed by his own romance, and tucks it in his Bible as if it is a prayer. Somewhere in the night, the wind shifts, the sea breathes, and the city turns its face toward coming trouble none of them can yet name. The notice arrives without ceremony, just a pale sheet pasted crooked on a pillar near the pepper sellers, words stamped in unfeeling type. Redevelopment, it announces. Public-private partnership. Super Save Accra, Ltd. The specifics are in the smaller print. Modern retail complex, improved sanitation, relocation of informal traders to designated sites. Afia reads the words twice, a third time, then once more as if repetition might turn threats into errors. By noon the notice has multiplied. Copies ripple down alleyways like a new species of leaf. Market women gather, their voices rising from concern to outrage to that knife-like laughter people use when anger is too large for words. Designated sites, someone spits. Like we are refuse. An assembly forms around Mame Esi's stool. She lifts the paper with 2 fingers as if it might stain her. They say relocate, she says. To where? To the shore where the tide eats all it wants? To the roadside where Trotras swallow children. Kwesi folds his arms, jaw tight. They will not do it, he tries, but even in his mouth it sounds like hope spoken against the wind. Afia feels the ground sway, not literally, but in that way tectonic shifts announce themselves to the body before the mind can explain. She steps forward. We must ask questions, she says. Her mother nods sharply, eyes blazing. We must do more than ask. Officials appear like ants after sugar. They wear crisp shirts and helpful smiles that don't reach their eyes. They talk about hygiene, flood mitigation, progress. We will build toilets, one says as if the city had just discovered them. We will pave the lanes. You will have proper shops. Proper for who? Someone yells. Proper where I cannot afford rent? The official's smile falters. He speaks of compensation measured in Ghana cedis that feel like jokes in the mouths of men who have never bargained for plantain at dawn. Afia catches Kwesi's gaze across the crowd. His eyes are steady, and she sees the same flare of refusal burning in him. Later, behind the vegetable stall, their words come fast, braided with worry. If they move us, he says, my grandmother cannot climb the hill to the new site. Her knees will be finished. Afia feels a sudden heat in her throat. My mother will starve before she gives her life to a manager who doesn't know how to weigh fish. They are young but they carry people on their backs. In the afternoon they walk the alleys as if they belong to them, which they do, counting vendors, noting stakeholders. Afia's notebook fills, Antivita, spices, Corker, beads, Mensima, soaps, Ya the cobbler, repairs, the Muslim butcher with his precise blade. Kwesi sketches a map as he remembers it, a cartography of memory, which gutter swells first in rain where the thieves hide, which stalls shelter schoolchildren from sudden storms. All this is knowledge, Afia says, touching the paper. They didn't put it on their pretty plan. Evening thickens. Someone suggests a meeting on Sunday when the market rests. Bring your pastors, a woman cries. Your imams. Bring your loudest aunties. The laughter cracks and mends the fear. Afia lingers at the stall as customers thin. She doesn't want to go home where worry will ricochet off the walls. She wants the comfort of Kwesi's voice, low and thoughtful, wants the way he tests ideas like fruit for ripeness. As the light loosens, he draws her into the narrow ribbon of space between awning and wall. It is private in the way only crowded places can be, the world rushing past like a river while they stand inside a pocket of stillness. Afia, he says, and her name in his mouth is a kind of shelter. We will fight. She nods, throat tight. We will fight, she echoes, and then the words are replaced by silence, and in that silence she feels a courage that is not loud but fierce. He raises his hand as if to tuck a stray curl behind her ear, then hesitates. She leans forward, granting permission with a breath. His fingers are rough from crates. The gentleness lives in how he uses them, not in the skin itself. The touch is the tenderest punctuation at the end of a sentence neither of them knew they were writing. Me do wa, he whispers, not as a declaration that demands reply but as a truth that exists whether or not it's named. Afia lays her forehead against his, simple as prayer. In the corner of her sight, the market continues, laughter, argument, the scrape of metal bowls. Inside the touch, an anchor drops. She imagines futures, yes, but also presents in which they stand like this, shoulder to shoulder, learning the stubborn art of staying. When they part, they are both different, less afraid, more awake. She goes home carrying 2 truths that refuse to contradict each other, that everything is uncertain, and that love has entered the room. Makola on Sunday is a lion resting. The alleys are quieter but not empty. Children play football between the shuttered stalls. Cats slip under tables where fish scales once glittered. Church bells ring somewhere beyond the roofs. By late afternoon, the traders gather near the pepper mound, a natural amphitheater of crates and benches, the air fragrant with last night's smoke. Afia, notebook ready, takes a place near the front. Kwesi stands beside Mamius I, arms steadying the old woman as if the earth might tilt. The meeting begins with prayer in many languages. Chui Jiu Pidgin. A pastor asks for wisdom, an imam asks for justice. An older woman with salt hair and a cloth tied tight around her waist begins to speak in a voice that could cut rope. I was here before your super whatever learned to spell its name, she says. When the soldiers chased us in 79 we came back. When the fire ate our goods we came back. Who will drive us out now? Cheers spark like kindling. Afia rises to speak, heart climbing her throat. We need our own numbers, she says, showing the notebook. Not just how many stalls. How many mouths. How many school fees this market pays, how many funerals, how many medications. Let us tell our story with facts as well as with fire. Heads nod. A teacher from the next street offers to help with data. A radio presenter promises airtime. Someone's nephew who once made YouTube videos says he can record testimonies. Afia feels the room tip toward purpose. Then the officials arrive again like rain at a wedding. They offer leaflets with renderings of clean aisles and gleaming glass. You will have fans, one says as if wind were favor they could bestow. The crowd's patience thins. We want consultation, Afia's mother says. Not pictures. The official's phone rings, he pretends not to hear. Kwesi steps forward, lower and calmer. Where will my grandmother go while you build? He asks. The official blinks. Temporary site at. He names a place far and uphill. The crowd's groan is a single animal. In the lull after frustration, Kwesi finds Afia's hand. He doesn't lace their fingers in front of everyone. He just rests his palm against hers, heat to heat, the contact more vow than gesture. We need allies, he murmurs. Lawyers, heritage people, journalists. I know a law student, Afia says. She does, a cousin of a customer who once bought 3 yards of water blue cloth. Call her, he says. Call everyone. As twilight lowers, music arrives because this is Accra and even grief carries rhythm. A young woman starts a song, call and response that shakes dust from the rafters. Afia sings until her throat abrades. When her voice gives out, she leans on Kwesi's shoulder, cheeks warm from the closeness, heart pounding with a new kind of fatigue, the kind that means forward. You said you would dance with me when it is proper, she murmurs, teasing to keep from crying. This is proper, he replies, drawing her into a slow sway, their bodies finding a measure older than trouble. The dance is not showy. It is the rocking of two people who have decided to carry the same load. His hand on her back is wide and sure. Her cheek fits the hollow between his collarbone and his throat. It is not a kiss, but it is everything a kiss promises. Presence, patience, the belief that time will be a friend if they are gentle with it. Around them aunties clap, unbothered, amused. One whistles. Market love is the sweetest, until the police come. Later, when the crowd breaks, Afia and Kwesi sit on the pepper sacks, legs stretched, the market a cosmos of quiet. What if we lose? Afia asks, the question a confession and a dare. Kwesi studies his palms as if directions might be written there. Then we will build again, he says. But let us not choose defeat before we have begun. He squeezes her hand once, a punctuation mark. She nods, steadier. The stars over Makola blink through the haze like coins tossed into a deep, stubborn well. Monday is for strategy. Afia's notebook grows teeth. Contact lists, task assignments, dates for petitions and media briefs. The law student cousin arrives in braids and conviction, explaining injunctions and rights to livelihood in a voice that makes legalese sound like a drumbeat. They must consult meaningfully, she says, underlining the phrase as if it is a spell. And if they don't? Afia asks. The law student's smile is small and fierce. Then we make it expensive to ignore us. Kwesi gathers the younger men to mend pallets, to build temporary shelves, to fix gutters that the city has abandoned in favor of diagrams. If they say we are dirty, he tells them, we will be cleaner than their thoughts. They scrub until their fingers prune, hang signs about waste, organize a rota for sweeping. It is not respectability politics. It is reclaiming narrative. When a camera arrives later, Afia makes sure the lens sees not chaos but care. Between the meetings and the mops, romance hides in plain sight and then steps forward boldly, as if activism has made them both braver. Afia brings Kwesi coconut pieces chilled in ice water. He feeds her slices of ripe mango with a tenderness that turns the air to silk. Once, mid-bargain, she glances up to find him watching her with an expression that undresses nothing but still feels intimate. Awe, pride, a hint of mischief she knows she will spend years learning. In the narrow back lane behind the textiles they steal 10 minutes. The world funnels to their joined breathing. I keep thinking of a house with a small veranda, he confesses, voice low, a lemon tree, a radio that refuses to die. Afia smiles. And a shelf where you keep the poems you pretend you don't write. He groans, caught. Who told you? Your eyes, she says. They are always writing. He kisses her knuckles, each one a brief, reverent touch. It is chaste enough for any pastor, and yet the electricity lifts the hairs along her arms. Trouble returns like a tide. Officials, impatient, set a date for site clearance. That sounds a lot like demolition. Anxiety skitters through the aisles. A rumor slaps like wet cloth. Bulldozers seen near the square. It is a scare tactic, someone says. It is rehearsal, says another. Afia's stomach knots. She calls the radio presenter. He promises a morning segment. She drafts a statement by torchlight, words careful, spine iron. This market is not merely commerce, it reads. It is memory and mutual aid, apprenticeship and song. Night stretches. The generator chokes and dies. Afia and her mother shell groundnuts by candle, the rhythm soft as prayer beads. You love him, her mother says, like whether she has known was coming. Afia swallows. Yes. The word isn't an apology, it isn't triumph. It is a stone placed gently on a grave of girlhood fantasies less real than this rough, shining thing she has found. Her mother sighs. It is a long road. Make sure both your feet are on it. Afia nods. Both, she promises, and feels the promise move down to her heels. At his home, Kwesi bathes Mamia's knees in warm water and herbs. You are wearing yourself, she scolds softly. He grins. I am wearing hope. She hums, neither fooled nor unkind. Hope is good. But hope must eat. He ensures she does, then slips out into the blue night to meet Afia under the shadow of the closed gate. They stand with their fingers laced, foreheads nearly touching, the city's hum softened to a purr. If they come early, he says, I will call you. If they come early, she replies, I will already be there. Their kiss is unhurried, a conversation in the language of patience. Hello, be safe, tomorrow, keep breathing. The wind rises, carrying the smell of the sea and the metal edge of change. They part because they must, both of them half turn back even as they walk away. Upstairs, Afia's mother watches from the window, hands crossed over her chest in a gesture that is not disapproval but protection, as if she could cover her daughter from harm the way one covers bowls from dust. Before dawn, drums wake the market, the old rhythm of traders who have always known how to call each other to alert. The bulldozers are, for now, a rumor. The men who drive them drink tea somewhere, indifferent. Afia and Kwesi arrive at the same time from opposite directions, eyes meeting like flint. Afia holds up a sheaf of papers. The petition, the media schedule, the plan for a human chain if necessary. Paper shields, she says wryly. Fire hearts, he replies, and the phrase feels like a banner. Around them, Makola stirs, stubborn and alive. The radio presenter keeps his promise. At 6:15 a.m., the city is still rubbing sleep from its eyes when Afia's voice arrives, steady, clear, threaded with heat. She talks about apprenticeship, about aunties who trained 3 generations with nothing but their hands and stubbornness, about how Makola pays not only school fees but hospital bills, bride prices, funeral levies, and the quiet loans no bank would risk. When she finishes, the presenter lets the silence sit, the kind of respectful hush that becomes a megaphone. We'll keep following this, he says. Listeners, send your stories. By 7, the WhatsApp line is an arterial river. Traders text photos of stalls reconstructed after fires, of daughters graduating in gowns paid for with tomatoes and fish. A woman in Tima sends a voice note weeping as she remembers learning multiplication by counting coins at her mother's table. Afia screens and forwards them to the law student, who knits evidence into a brief. Her notebook swells with check marks until the paper feels like armor. Kwesi has a different task: wood and paint. He and the young men build placards from pallet scraps, sanding the splinters, painting letters with the solemnity of carvers. No market, no memory. Progress without people is not progress. We are not relocatable. He tests the balance of each sign the way he balances crates. A craftsman with words now, not vegetables. When he looks up and finds Afia holding a cup of Milo, his smile breaks the morning open. They steal a corridor of time at the back of the textiles. The alley smells of starch and dye stuff, of cloth that remembers the hand that printed it. Your voice on the radio, he murmurs, tucking a curl behind her ear. It climbed inside me on Saturday. She laughs, shaky from the nearness. And your signs will speak when my voice is tired. Their kiss is brief, a seal on a pact, tasting of chocolate and the future's metallic edge. By afternoon, rumors bloom. Super Save is hosting a listening session at a glassy hotel near the ridge. Listening like a hunter listens for Russell, Mamie's eye snorts. The traders vote to attend. Afia borrows a dress the calm blue of a sea before a storm. Kwesi finds a clean shirt, irons the collar with the back of a spoon, and hides his calluses in his pockets as they enter a lobby that smells of lemons and far away. Executives pour words like bottled water. There is a slide deck, son. Sanitation, they say. Safety. They frame the market as a problem to be solved by glass. Afia raises her hand. We are not a problem, we are a place, she says, not loud, not small, and the room shifts as if a curtain has been lifted. She lists the stalls by name and lineage until the slides look indecent beside the living archive she names. Cameras find her. A young assistant looks stricken and begins to type. After, on the hotel's windy terrace, the city pours itself around them. Tirotros-like sentences without punctuation, sea air salted and persuasive. I am no one's consultant, Afia says, fists unclenching. You are my favorite consultant, Kwesi replies, and it is ridiculous and perfect. He kisses her forehead, lingering there as if to memorize the map of her future furrows. She leans into him until the wind has nothing left to take. They leave with nothing signed, nothing conceded, and yet with a kind of advance, the sound of their own unshakable no. Back at Makola, the dusk ignites charcoal pots. Someone stirs light soup. The bell of a passing ice cream seller rings like a child's prayer. Afia and Kwesi stack their placards under the stall awning where the night can guard them. Tomorrow, she says. Tomorrow, he echoes, and the word tastes like pepper. Hot, necessary, impossible to forget. The bulldozers arrive too early for decency, the yellow steel huffing like impatient animals, a convoy of authority that believes morning makes it righteous. A pickup disgorges men in reflective vests. Two policemen stand with arms folded, their gazes clicking over faces as if counting heat sources. Afia is already there, braid loosened by the rush, placard in one hand, phone in the other. Live, the radio presenter texts. We are listening. Kwesi plants himself in front of the vegetable shed. His sign reads, We feed Accra, do not starve us. Beside him, teenagers who learn to measure adulthood by from whom they could borrow credit form a human line, elbows linked. Aunties tie their cloth tighter. A pastor prays under his breath. Someone begins a low song that sounds like a millstone turning. An official in a too bright tie clears his throat. Temporary clearance, he announces. We will keep your goods safe. Laughter answers, bitter as burnt sugar. The last time you kept our goods safe, Mamie's eye says, eyes flint. They vanished into honorable's kitchens. Afia steps forward, camera held high. We have filed an injunction, she says. If you proceed, you violate the court. It is not yet granted, but the papers are in, and possibility is sometimes enough to make a man hesitate. Hesitation shivers. Then a bulldozer lunges toward a timber beam and the crowd surges, not violent but vast. Kwesi is a fulcrum in the push, his body a lever of refusal. Afia hears the rip of a shirt, a policeman barks. A baton lifts, arcs, finds a shoulder that is his. The sound is small like a mango thumping soft ground, but it shocks the air. Afia's cry tears out of her, wordless and precise. Stop, she shouts, voice cracked and multiplied by the radios now tuned to Makola. You strike us and call it development? The camera phones multiply. A junior officer, suddenly aware of eyes, barks the bulldozer back. The machine exhales, embarrassed. Stand down, someone decides, grading the moment for risk. The convoy idles. The morning holds its breath. Afia tucks herself against Kwesi's side. He is grinning the foolish grin of men who do not want mothers to worry. Small thing, he says, though the bruise will flower. She touches his shoulder with a gentleness that is also fury. You do not belong to their batons, she says. You belong to me. It is an outrageous sentence to say in public, and yet heads nod, aunties laugh, uncles murmur, ahinwa, as if she has pronounced something both proprietary and holy. By noon, the law student arrives breathless, court stamp on paper like a seal of rain. Injunction granted, temporary. The yellow beasts recoil, shamed by ink. Someone ululates. Someone cries. Afia reads the lines twice, then once more for the elder with cataracts who needs victory said into his ear. Kwesi leans his weight against the stall and lets relief loosen him until his knees understand ground again. They spend the rest of the day documenting damage, making lists as if naming is the first medicine. When the last camera leaves, Afia and Kwesi retreat to the quiet slit of space behind the Kent rolls. She cleans his shoulder with salted water, blows across the tender place until his breath stumbles. The kiss that follows is slow, deliberate, proof of life. It does not set the market on fire, there are already too many flames. Instead it glows low like charcoal ready to cook a long meal. Night drops soft and black. The bulldozers sleep somewhere legal. The market exhales, repairs begin. Afia lies awake later replaying the morning's edge. Fear curls in one corner, in the other, pride sharpens. Between them, love stretches out and claims the space, stubborn as the first woman who decided to sell fish on that corner and dared anyone to move her. The injunction buys time measured in breath, not years. The traders use every inhale. Afia becomes a registrar of lives, who learned arithmetic counting okra, who escaped a bad marriage because her stall gave her income, who lost a son and was held upright by a circle of sellers who structured their grief into a rota of meals. She writes until the pen cramps and the margins grow teeth. Kwesi turns mapmaker. With a surveyor's tape borrowed from a cousin, he and 2 apprentices measure lanes and gutters, mark where water pools, sketch where a raised walkway will keep ankles dry in August. In situ upgrading, the law student calls it, delighted. We aren't against improvement, Afia says into every microphone that finds her. We are against erasure. The strain shows. Afia's mother counts coins with a new severity, eyeing the window where her daughter used to stand and dream. You are burning candle at both ends, she warns. Afia wants to say the middle is brighter this way, but she swallows the poetry and offers logistics. Volunteers will cover mornings, she will rest in the heat of noon. Her mother pinches her cheek, half scold, half blessing. And the boy, she asks. The boy is stubborn? Afia smiles. As stubborn as plantain that refuses to ripen until it is ready. In the back corridor, Afia and Kwesi bargain with time. They give themselves exactly 8 minutes together twice a day, no more, no less. In those minutes they do not strategize. They breathe each other's air, trade sips of sabalo, press foreheads together, stroke the inside of a wrist where pulse confesses all. It is a discipline of tenderness, a rationing that makes every second ripe. A rumor arrives oddly. Super Save has offered scholarships to market children, a PR ribbon tied around a baton. The press laps it, the politicians preen. Afia refuses the bait. A scholarship is good, she says into one camera. But when a river is dammed, do you praise the bucket? The clip travels. An auntie in Wa calls to bless her. A man in a suit sends a message that is both threat and invitation. They ignore it like a mosquito. By evening, the exhaustion is a grain of sand under everything. Kwesi's shoulder throbs. Mame Esi's knees complain. Afia's voice frays to threads. They sit on overturned crates and let the market's night symphony knit them back together. Kettle whistles, cats complaining, an old radio at low volume singing a song that everyone's grandmother knows. Marry me, Kwesi says, and it is half a joke, half a test balloon released into the dark. Afia's laugh is a yes tied with a not yet. Bring me a ring carved from tomato seed, she says. I will still say yes. He takes her hand, kisses the palm, the wrist, the tender crook where work has not yet hardened the skin. Each kiss is a petition. Each breath is an affidavit. When they part, the market feels less like a battlefield and more like a house being protected by people who know where every squeaky board is and who refuse to let thieves in while the children sleep. It arrives in a courier's hand, a letter with a logo that smells of toner and polished floors. Kwesi reads the glossy temptation twice, then again, a position as community liaison, a monthly salary that could buy medicine for Mame ESI without counting coins, an advance for transitional costs. The catch isn't written, it is watermark faint, help ease stakeholders toward accepting relocation. He sits very still, the way fishermen sit when they sense a line has tangled deep. He takes it to Afia, because truth is the first ritual they've learned to keep. They read it together in the quiet alley behind the spices. The air is a cliff of nutmeg and cloves. It is not an insult, he says carefully. It is a trap dressed as a staircase. Afia nods, throat tight with an emotion that is not jealousy but the ache of knowing goodness is often punished by bad choices. Your grandmother, she says softly. He hears what she does not say, obligation, love, the math of medicine against principle. They do not fight. They argue like carpenters plan, measuring twice. She says the market needs him visible as a resistor, not co-opted as a translator of harm. He says the market needs medicine, and that money is a tool, not a creed. She presses her forehead to his chest to stop the rise of panic. He wraps his arms around her because they have discovered it is possible to hold someone and disagree without letting go. That night he sits with Mamie Si. Her knees are small fires. If you take money that makes you a broom to sweep people out, she says, the money will itch your hands. He laughs, then chokes because he knows she is right and because the aching in his shoulder has taught him to fear what happens when patrols come without cameras. We will find another way, she says, and the we puts a plank under his feet. He returns the next morning with a note that thanks and refuses. The courier looks relieved, as if a person who has refused once is harder to recruit later and therefore easier to ignore now. Afia, hearing, lets tears come in the private alley, not because she doubted him, but because choosing the long road hurts the soles of the feet. They walk to the seafront at Jamestown after the stalls close, a rare indulgence of distance. The lighthouse stands like a tired sentinel. Children kick a half-flat ball, their laughter throwing sparks. They sit and watch the waves slap advice against the rocks. I wanted to say yes for 5 minutes, Kwesi admits. Then I remembered the other 55 minutes of the hour. Afia takes his hand. We will make your 5 minutes of yes in another currency, she says. Time maybe. Or a roof that doesn't leak. The kiss they share smells of salt and fried fish and a future they are stubborn enough to invent. It is not a cinematic dip, it is a steady press of mouths that says, I see you choosing, I am choosing beside you. The idea comes from a child. Why don't we show them, he asks, mouth purple from Sabalo, eyes sly bright. Show them, not tell. So they plan a festival that is not a festival so much as an X-ray. Makola Day. The notices go up in every language the stalls can speak. Come see how a market breathes. On Saturday the alleys unfurl like Kent. Drummers anchor the morning. A seamstress sets her machine at the end of a lane and stitches a dress from start to finish while people watch the miracle of cloth becoming story. A spice seller conducts blindfold tastings, laughter seasoning the air. The cobbler shows how a soul can be saved, a metaphor everyone applauds without needing it explained. Afia curates a museum on crates. Old scales, brass weights, a black and white photo of a grandmother with a machete and a smile that dares a century to argue. The law student prints QR codes linking to testimonies and data. Journalists arrive, led by curiosity and the rumor that something is truer here than in any press release. Kwesi arranges a pyramid of tomatoes that would make Euclid cry, then interrupts the geometry to hand fruit to children with the serious ceremony of a priest dispensing sacrament. At noon he climbs a stool and clears his throat. I am not a poet, he lies, then proves himself wrong with a small, fierce poem about hands and the first price he ever learned to state without looking to his grandmother for permission. When he finishes, the applause is an embrace. Afia takes the stool after him. She doesn't read from notes. She speaks the market's names again, slower this time, like a prayer before a long journey. She names her own fear, and the crowd exhales as if they have been waiting to be given permission to confess theirs. She names the love that has grown here and does not point to Kwesi, but the air turns and looks anyway. In the evening, high life takes the lanes. They dance, finally, properly because they promised. He holds her like she is something he intends to study for decades. She rests her head on his shoulder like it is a home that passed inspection. Their kiss in the shadow of the Kent stall is unhurried and unquestionably theirs, intensifying until she feels time climb a ladder and sit to watch. They break only because an auntie pretends to cough and mutters, smiling, "EI market closes at 9. They go home lit from the inside. The reporter's stories are kinder than anyone expected. The photos catch dignity without stealing it. Super Save's account tweets something cautious about ongoing conversations. Afia falls asleep with sore feet and a soft mouth, dreaming of a ledger that balances because the currency is justice and the arithmetic is love. The sky warns first, an anvil of cloud over the city, a sour tang in the wind that tastes like metal. By closing time the first drops are the size of coins. Traders tarp and tie with the choreography learned from 1,000 quick exits. Trotiaro conductors swear at the sky. Afia checks her mother's stall twice, 3 times, fussing over knots as if a perfect knot can beat a bad storm. Kwesi insists on walking her home, then back to secure the vegetables. I'm not a child, she protests and he grins. Good. Then you will tell me if this is foolish. The rain decides, a sudden wall. They duck under a zinc eave that becomes a stage for intimacy. Water drums an irregular beat, their breath finds a counter rhythm. He brushes wet hair from her face and the touch is electric as a down line. She tilts up, and the kiss they share is rain-sweet heat bank, the kind that answers a question the day had been asking. Lightning tattles on them, painting their closeness for the sky, then darkness erases it again. I want to learn your mornings, he says against her forehead. The way you tie your scarf. The first thing you think before your feet hit ground. She laughs in the throat, touched and trembling. And I want to learn your quiets, she says. The places you go inside your head when the world is loud. A shout cuts through the downpour. A stall roof is giving way. They split without debate. He runs toward danger with men already lifting beams. She sprints to the pepper sellers who are bailing for dear dignity. The market moves as one organism, old lessons triggered, young legs leaping. By the time the worst passes, everyone is soaked and alive. They reconvene under the same zinc lip and laugh that feverish laugh that follows, narrowly avoiding disaster. At home, Afia peels wet cloth from her skin and listens to her mother's soft scoldings ricochet into prayers of thanks. She lies awake and considers the shape of want, how it expands to fit the courage available. Tonight the courage feels big. Kwesi returns to find Mame Esi heating balm over the stove. She rubs his shoulder like a psalm. The sky will not break you, she informs the room as if the room were the sky's secretary. He smiles then winces. It loves to try. When the house sleeps, he writes by torch, a list of roofing nails to buy, and beneath it, a single line, ask Afia what her first thought is. He sleeps badly and happily, which is to say he sleeps in love. Morning brings the storm's bill. In the jostle of repair, Mame Esi stumbles and goes down hard. The sound her knee makes is wrong. Kwesi's throat locks. The world narrows to carry in breath. The hospital corridor is a long white sentence that refuses to end. Nurses move like exhausted angels. He answers forms as if the paper cares. Afia arrives with a small army, the law student, 2 aunties, a sandal maker who knows a cousin in admissions. They push and soften and make space the way markets do. Money appears from 50 pockets. Soup arrives in a flask that leaks warmth into hands grown cold. Mame Esi sleeps at last, the wrinkle between her brows unknitting as medicine takes. In the lull, Afia and Kwesi sit in a plastic bench's embrace. Exhaustion strips language to bone. He leans his head on her shoulder. She fits her cheek against his hair and feels gratitude so intense it hurts. You do not have to be brave every hour, she whispers. We can take turns. He makes a sound that is half laugh, half surrender. Take this hour, he says. I will take the next. Bills assemble like soldiers. The refused job's shadow flickers but does not dominate. The market Susu group arrives with an envelope fat from small gifts, a map of grace drawn in sadies and coins. Kwesi swallows twice before he can say thank you. We are one another's insurance, an auntie says, brisk and holy. When night comes they walk home slow, fingers laced, the city gentled by rain-washed air. They stop under the jacaranda near Afia's lane, the blossoms making a purple print around their feet. If we lose the case, he says, because love makes room for worst-case edges, will you still love me if all we own is a table on a roadside? Afia steps closer, answers with her body first, chest to chest, breath braided. I will love you in a palace and under a bridge and in a room where the only art is a calendar from last year, she says. But we have not lost. The kiss that follows is deep and careful, reverent as though they are both aware of the hospital's antiseptic ghosts watching and blessing. They go home lit by a quieter fire, the kind that does not announce itself but makes tea in the morning and remembers to buy salt. The courthouse smells of paper and old wood politics. The traders arrive in their Sunday best, the market dressed as a congregation. Afia's mother wears a head wrap tied in a geometry fierce enough to cross-examine anyone. The judge's face is unreadable, an ocean at low tide. The city's lawyer begins with words that sound smooth because they were born in air-conditioned rooms. Modernization, he says as if the syllables themselves were clean. The law student rises, braid an exclamation point, and replies with precedent that tastes like brick and ash and stalls rebuilt after fire. Afia testifies, not as an expert but as a citizen with receipts. She lays out numbers and names until even the court reporter looks up, surprised to remember the law protects more than contracts. Kwesi does not speak, but when he stands to show his grandmother's cane and the route she would have to walk to the proposed temporary site, the courtroom breathes differently. The judge asks 3 questions that reveal a mind awake, then requests a recess long enough for the market to exhale through the corridor and pray in 4 languages. When the ruling comes, it is careful and kind. Injunction extended. Genuine consultation mandated. Time granted to explore in situ upgrading with trader representation. No bulldozer may touch a beam without a plan that includes the people who live by that beam. The market erupts, softly because this is a courtroom, but erupt it does, in tears and small prayers and hand squeezes that ache the knuckles. Outside cameras wait. Afia's words are measured, grateful, alert. We are not naive, she says. A paper is not a promise. But today the rain held. We will keep holding it. She and Kwesi slip away before the press can ask about the way he looks at her like an answered riddle. They walk to Jamestown again, this time on purpose, this time to let the sea say what it always says, begin again. He teaches her how to count the beats between waves to read a storm. She teaches him how to read a budget with eyes that notice what miscellaneous hides. As the sun stains the water with palm oil light, he kisses her slow and smiling. Consultation, he murmurs, this is the only kind I want mandated. She laughs into his mouth, joy making her generous. The consultation room has bad coffee and good acoustics. Trader representatives sit opposite city officials and Super Save's team, the table a narrow river no one is allowed to cross. Afia's notes are a small city. The law student has a binder that could stop a bullet. Kwesi brings maps and a quiet that steadies the air when voices try to climb too high. They bargain like people who intend to live with the result. Toilets, yes, but owned by the cooperative, not a private contractor who will lock doors at dusk. Walkways raised where gutters flood, but no rents tripled to pay for gilded tiles. A cold room for fish that market women manage. A nursery because babies have always been traded alongside beans and deserve shade. A fund seated by the city and audited by a board that includes aunties who fear neither man nor mathematics. There are moments when the officials look like people and moments when they look like policy. There are pauses where rage threatens to ruin everything and pauses where laughter saves it. When someone suggests relocating non-essential stalls, Afia names the woman who sells charcoal and paid her grandson's school fees with soot. What part of a life is non-essential? She asks, soft as the edge of a blade. At lunch, Kwesi and Afia sit on the steps and share kelaweel that stains their fingers with pepper joy. He watches her underline a clause and feels a rush that is not desire alone but respect braided with it, the sexiest combination he has discovered. When this is over, he says, I want to build you a shelf where contracts and recipes can live together. She kisses his cheek, then the corner of his mouth, then doesn't stop until a clerk coughs himself back into importance. By dusk, there is a draft MOU that tastes like compromise and victory at once. In situ upgrading, co-op governance, a timeline that respects seasons, a rent formula pinned to reality. It is not perfect, it is possible. We will take it to the people, Afia says, standing. The officials nod, relieved to share responsibility with a crowd they had hoped to avoid. Outside, Makola hears the news the way markets do, sideways in laughter and skeptical hums that mean hope is warming. That night, under the jacaranda, Kwesi pulls from his pocket a ring he carved from calabash and polished with shea. It is humble and luminous. He does not kneel because he knows she prefers eye level. Afia, he says, voice a low drum, will you build shelves and days and children's nicknames with me? Will you stand with me when the city forgets its own laws and when the sea climbs too high and when the beans are slow to sell? She thinks for exactly one heartbeat, which is to say she has been thinking forever. Yes, she says. In the kiss that follows there is future. A lemon tree that will sulk and then bear, a radio that finally dies and is mourned properly, two stubborn people who will learn to fight fair and forgive fast. Makola wakes to drums and a pen. The MOU is signed in front of cameras and children and gods. The mayor smiles the determined smile of someone who wishes this had been easier. The aunties glow like generals. A carpenter raises the first beam for the new walkway, and a boy ties a ribbon shaped like a fish to bless it. Afia and Kwesi open their combined stall with a sign hand-lettered by three cousins. Afia and Kwesi, produce and provisions. Tomatoes pyramid next to soaps. Garden eggs flirt with tins of milk. A shelf holds a ledger and a recipe book and a printed copy of the MOU like a talisman. Mamiasai sits on a taller stool now, a cushion under her knees and the relief of pain that has been paid for honestly. She receives the first sale, a bowl of tomatoes to a teacher, and counts the change with a slowness that is not age but joy. People come not only to buy but to bless. The imam touches the beam and murmurs. The pastor prays short and laughs long. The law student eats wache and falls asleep on a sack of rice like a soldier after war. The radio presenter brings a microphone but then puts it away because some stories are sweeter when they are allowed to belong to the people who live them. In the afternoon, the cooperative board meets under a new awning. They argue about sanitation schedules and whose nephew is actually competent to manage the cold room. They laugh so hard they cry so hard they laugh. It is governance and gossip, the only sustainable blend. Afia takes minutes with a pen that no longer feels like a weapon. Kwesi develops a distribution rota for tomatoes so that no one's stock bears the whole sun. When the day tilts to gold, music blooms. They dance again because joy requires muscle memory. He spins her once, twice, then pulls her close until the world narrows to a ribbon of breath between them. Their kiss is unhurried and public, blessed by auntie whistles and child giggles, sanctified by the smell of fried plantain and the fact of a walkway that will hold in August. Later, when the market softens and cats claim territory with imperial tails, Afia and Kwesi sit on their stools and count the till. It is not rich, it is honest. "Do you still want a lemon tree?" she asks, head on his shoulder. "Yes," he says. "And a shelf. And a child named after whoever first taught us to bargain properly," she teases. "Then we will have to ask the whole market its name," he replies, and they laugh the exhausted laugh of people whose tomorrow is complicated and gorgeous. They close the stall together. They walk out under the sign that bears both their names, into a city still imperfect and still theirs. Love found them between tomatoes and thunder. They didn't leave. They built a roof over it and called it home.